Hello viewers, thank you for joining me. I was really excited for this poll. For the last review of the year, I took the 4 shows that had come the closest to winning their previous polls and gave them a shot at redemption, basically. As you can see, Oreshura won that battle. Before we get to this review, I want to also announce that Roka no Yusha will be the series we start the new year with. It had such a lead the first 2 days, I almost couldn't believe Oreshura managed to pull off that last-minute victory. But it did, so here we are for a second romance series in a row. Oreshura introduces us to Eita Kido, the top student in his grade who does little else but study, working hard towards his dream of being a doctor. It's not too much of a struggle for him to avoid the distractions plaguing everyone else his age. Eita's sworn off everything romance-related, for pretty understandable reasons. His parents divorced when he was in middle school, and it sounds like there was infidelity on both sides. But when they broke up, they didn't just dump each other. Both went off to live with their new lovers, ditching Eita with an aunt who was kind enough to take him in, even if her crazy work schedule limits the amount of parenting she's able to do. The experience has soured his opinions on love, and he's quick to mock other people for getting caught up in childish crushes. He'd never consider dating someone himself, but one of his classmates throws a wrench in his plans. Masuzu Natsukawa is the undisputed, most beautiful, most popular girl in the school. Heads turn every time she walks by, and there's no end to the string of people confessing their love to her, but she turns down each and every one. One day, Masuzu corners Eita and demands he be her boyfriend. Not for real. She tells him they're kindred spirits. She's just as anti-love as he is. She hopes her many admirers will finally leave her alone if she's publicly in a relationship. But she's incredibly uppity and rude about this request, and Eita's not interested in all the attention and jealousy it's sure to bring his way, so he tries to turn her down. And then she pulls out her ace. Masuzu's managed to get her hands on the journal he used to write in up through middle school, and Eita wasn't always this paragon of the serious, perfect student. We'll talk about this more when we get into the other characters, but in a way, Oreshura felt like a tribute to awkwardness in its most natural form, nerdiness without a specific focus, cringiness even, much as I've kind of come to hate that term. Let me tell you, one of the best parts of adulthood is the confidence that I feel just naturally comes with being more independent. Not to get off topic, but I used to feel like there was a time limit to so many of the things I enjoyed, like I'd have to give up the things that brought me joy as a necessary part of growing up. And that wasn't the case at all. The nerdy teenager I used to be just grew into a nerdy adult who still watches anime, still reads fanfiction, still enjoys a lot of music that's not anyone's idea of cool. I'm just comfortable enough to do it all a lot more openly now. Oreshura was one of those series that made me feel kind of old, because I looked at all these characters and couldn't help but think they were such kids, in an endearing way. So yes, Eita's got a notebook full of the most self-indulgent fantasies you can imagine, where he's this all-powerful hero with a dark past and a harem of equally cool and interesting girls all falling in love with him. And I'm sure that someday he'll be able to look back and either laugh it off or embrace it, because you know what? Your hobbies don't need any value other than the happiness they bring you. But as a high school student, I can appreciate that he feels like it would be the end of the world if Masuzu were to spread those tales around to his classmates like she's threatening to. So he agrees to her proposal, but there are some complications he didn't account for. Eita's about to get his harem after all, but it looks a lot different in real life. First is Chiwa, his childhood best friend and neighbor. A lot of the kids around school call her Chihuahua, possibly the best nickname I've ever come across. Not only is it a great play on her name, it perfectly captures who Chiwa is. Tiny, loud, and energetic in a slightly aggressive way. Some of her classmates definitely use it in a more derogatory, bullying sort of way, but for others it was practically an endearment. Chiwa's the eccentric friend, the one without a drop of self-consciousness in her, who doesn't think twice about causing a scene. She tells Eita it's her goal to be popular and get a boyfriend, but she's her own worst enemy in that regard. Not because there's anything inherently unlikable about her, Chiwa was definitely an early favorite for me, but because popularity usually requires some level of caring what others think about you, and Chiwa just doesn't. But Eita suspects this new dream of popularity is just a desperate attempt at finding some new goal after being forced to abandon her old one. Chiwa used to be this star athlete, but she was in a car crash the same summer Eita's parents left. Chiwa's own parents are workaholics. What's most notable about them is that we never see them, save for one scene where her mom asks Eita to look after her because she's homesick for the day. I don't want to get into how the romance aspect of this show shaped up just yet, but the childhood friends route was going strong early in this series. You really get a feel for how they've relied on each other throughout the years. Eita's own dream of being a doctor actually came about because he felt Chiwa's doctors didn't do enough for her. But Chiwa's crush is pretty obvious, threatening the image Masuzu's trying to craft of her happy, untouchable relationship. So she invites Chiwa to join a new club she's just started, the Club for Maidens Looking to Reinvent Themselves. They study the art of being popular, basically, and their first mission is to get Chiwa that boyfriend. This first little arc really did wonders for both Eita's and Chiwa's characters, because Masuzu's pretty outright cruel about it. She's clearly got her own agenda when she sets up Chiwa for a date with one of the most popular boys in school. And sure enough, the guy turns out to be a jerk who stands her up, and then shows up with a gang of his friends to make fun of her when she's still waiting for him an hour later. It's a really fantastic scene all around, actually, because Eita attempts to rush to her rescue, not caring for once how crazy he looks, shouting at them all in public. But after all that, Chiwa goes back to the club like nothing happened, determined to keep going with it. It's just who she is. She doesn't quit. The fallout made me see Masuzu a little differently too, but I'm saving her for last. Eita's rant defending Chiwa drew him another admirer. Himeka is the more traditional version of cringy, if there is such a thing. She doesn't have a reputation for being strange, not like Chiwa does. Her classmates just see her as shy and quiet. But underneath that shyness is a girl who loves video games more than life, and the fantasy worlds she loves to lose herself in are oddly compatible with the ones Eita used to dream up, and so the club gains another member. I really liked Himeka too. I am such a sucker for this type of character, the lonely one making her first real friends. She tells Eita that her life was gray before, and she'd been hoping that would change when she entered high school, that she'd find people she could really relate to, who'd accept her for who she really is, and now she has that, and I loved to see it. The final club member is a girl named Ai. She's actually the hall monitor who was trying to get their club shut down. Turns out, she knew Eita in kindergarten and has been holding on to that crush for the last 10 years, even though he barely remembers her. Ai's your classic tsundere, too proud for her own good, determined to be seen as responsible and sophisticated, but a really childish side tends to come out whenever she's surprised. To be honest, I found her to be a little on the annoying side, but there's definitely value in the way she fits into the group, which leads us into some of the bigger picture thoughts. Stay with me here, but early on, I was a little disappointed. Oreshura wasn't shaping up to be quite what I'd wanted it to be. As far as genres go, romance isn't really my thing, but if there's one trope I do really like, it's the circumstances force two characters to pretend to be in a relationship only for them to really fall in love plotline. I had such high hopes for Nisekoi, you guys. I'm still not over it. Despite being the basis of the story, the fake romance isn't really a highlight in this one. It's never particularly fun, and Masuzu gets off to a pretty rough start. She's really unlikable when you first meet her. As a whole, the love story aspect of this show was okay. Not bad, just unfinished. It definitely feels like Oreshura's anime only covers the first stage of that part of the story, but it really shines in other areas. To properly enjoy this show, I had to let go of what I'd wanted this series to be and embrace what it actually was, which is, funnily enough, what I'm usually looking for in a show. There were some great individual character stories in here, and they combined to form a heartwarming friendship story. It's pretty rare for the girls to actually feel like rivals with each other, other than a few rough moments between Masuzu and Chiwa. Though they have every reason to be competitive with each other, the girls usually get along just fine. They have fun, they're supportive of each other. They were so excited to show Himeka the beach for the first time. I loved those moments. There's a sketchy half of an episode where Eita starts to worry that Masuzu's been excluded from that friendship, but it turns out the other three just wanted to surprise their club president as a thank you for bringing them all together. Because they're not the kind of club that gets uniforms or anything, they got a set of matching keychains. It's a really sweet scene, but it brings out some complicated emotions for Masuzu. Masuzu's a complicated character. I mentioned that she was pretty unlikable at first, but not irredeemable. I kept waiting for a softer side to be revealed, because I was sure there had to be one. It just played out a little differently than I'd been expecting. Despite using it as her qualifications to run a club like this, Masuzu makes it pretty clear from the first time you meet her that she hates her own popularity. Early on, I'd been waiting for some kind of storyline about being true to yourself, because Masuzu's revealed to be the otaku brand of nerdy. She seems to know every chapter of every volume of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure by heart, but they don't really explore that too deeply. The first time I felt like I was really seeing past her armor was episode 5. It's pool day in gym class, and the ever-so-confident Masuzu is clearly uncomfortable being out amongst her classmates in nothing but a bathing suit. If she tries to cover up, she's treated to rude whispers from the girls about how she's trying to attract attention. If she so much as breathes too deeply, it gets the boys all excited. She can't win. It's honestly a little hard to watch. This scene came on the tail of Chiwa's disastrous date, so it was the early days of being able to appreciate what they even got out of this club. Originally, I hadn't been sure the club was even going to last past this first little story arc. And while Chiwa and Masuzu may not have been particularly friendly, at least Chiwa treated her like a regular person. I don't think I could appreciate how important that was until that moment by the pool. Just how isolating it can be to be so loved and admired by everyone. We're given another piece of the puzzle in the form of Masuzu's little sister, Mana. Masuzu came across as a bit of a bully at first, but she's got nothing on her sister. That was another disturbing revelation. Masuzu is immediately cowed by Mana's threats to report back to their father that she's involved in something as frivolous as this club. There's clearly something going on at home. And we get a little bit of that story. The Natsukawas are pretty wealthy and influential. When Masuzu's father broke up with her mother, there wasn't much she could do to stop him from taking their daughter away with him. When Eita finally has a heart-to-heart with Mana near the end of the series, she tells him their father treated Masuzu more like an accessory than a person, and she played the part well. She was the perfect daughter and perfect student. The anime doesn't reveal what feels like a crucial missing piece to me, Masuzu's breaking point. She spent most of her life abroad. She's back in Japan, apparently looking for her mother, against her father's wishes, and I'd really love to know how she got here. I described the romance as incomplete, but Eita actually does pick one of the girls by the end. It just feels like she may not be his final choice. There are too many big things left unfinished with some of these character stories. But this little conversation with Mana put a whole new spin on Masuzu's character for me, to the point where I know if I rewatched this series from the beginning, I'd view her early scenes totally differently. She and Eita get off to a pretty rough start, but I think she's the one to first describe herself as a bitch, At the very least, she embraces it wholeheartedly when someone else does. It was only near the end that I could appreciate that being able to express the uglier parts of her personality is the ultimate freedom for someone who's been forced to pretend to be perfect all her life. That she could be openly selfish and nerdy and even occasionally cruel and still make friends like this. Friends who've seen her for who she really is and still want to be with her anyway. Make no mistake, Masuzu's view of just how bad she really is definitely warped, but there was something really beautiful about how this club came together in the end. I've said it before, nothing gets me like a good friendship story. So in the end, Oreshura was good, just not really in the way I'd been expecting it to be, and that's a nice surprise sometimes. I'd been a little worried this poll had been swayed by a bit of a recency bias. Oreshura had just lost last month's poll, but I'm glad I got to see this one sooner rather than later, and I'd recommend giving it a try if you missed it. Thank you for watching.